Welcome back. This is Tim and Julie Harris, and we've got another fantastic show for you today. Right from my notes, the topic of today is no more getting ghosted, 10 secrets to get prospects to call you back. But before Julie Harris gets to her first point, because as you guys know, she is the script creator, I want to give you a couple reminders. Number one, you're going to want today's notes. We rarely get through all of our notes on this podcast. Julie does such a fantastic job preparing all of these. And we want you to have the notes. We want you to have the notes for your own information, obviously sharing with other folks that you might be, maybe you're in a position of being a coach or a trainer. And this is a great place to get your notes for your next session. Or maybe you're looking for social material. Maybe you're just looking for a better way to present to your sellers or your buyers. And some of our scripts are going to save your bacon. Well, they're all ready for you. They're all waiting for you, but you've got to go get them. And just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. It is our daily newsletter, thus the name, Harris Real Estate Daily. And that is where the notes from today's podcast and all podcasts and all videos and a whole bunch of other stuff is waiting for you, and it costs you nothing. So just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. And you do have to go there, enter in your email address. And remember, you have to go then back to your normal email, and you have to double opt in, confirm that you want the subscription. Otherwise, you won't get it. So there's that. Number two, I want to thank all of you for wishing Julie and I such gratuitous happy birthdays. We really appreciate it. And Julie's birthday is coming up on the Wednesday, and mine was yesterday, but we generally celebrate our birthdays on the same day. But right now I'm actually 2 years older than Julie, which is kind of weird.
For 3 days. I won't be reminding you about that as frequently as possible.
So people who have known us for a long time know how old we are, but other people have been asking. It's kind of funny on Instagram, they're asking. So my answer is this, because Julie will get mad at me if I kind of tell you her age, but our combined age is 109. Okay. So that's how we all are.
They can decide where to wait those years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So Julie, let's get started. And I want to mention this too. The podcast we did yesterday talking about the housing crash, and you and I were predicting there was going to be a whole bunch of half-baked nitwits coming out with predictions that there was going to be a housing crash. I mean, and we are right. And sure enough, there's all this bad information that's getting built upon bad information about what's actually happening in housing. If you didn't listen to yesterday's show, make sure you go back and listen. And really, at the end of the day, guys, we're in this really bizarre era, or this, I don't even know. I don't completely understand it. I'm waiting for someone to explain it to me. Why there seems to be this very well-organized faction of folks that wants to dissuade people from becoming homeowners. Somebody sent me some Karl Marx and I forget some other communist manifesto stuff, which was like, okay. And the gist of it was, well, but Julie, it was interesting. I mean, one of the things was, it said specifically that in a communist socialism type environment, people aren't supposed to own things, and real estate's one of the things they're not supposed to own. The government's supposed to own all of them, and that was this listener's thesis as to why they too have noticed that there's sort of an organized movement to try to discourage people from buying homes. But look, guys, the proof is in the pudding, and the proof is in the numbers. And if we just look at it strictly from an analytical perspective, setting aside emotions and all the things that go into the really I think the basis of a real great neighborhood civilization, a real great community, everything that we all want, the American dream, is all predicated essentially on home ownership. But taking it more practically, the average homeowner over their lifetime accumulates. Julie, do you remember what the number is versus a renter?
It's about 40 times as much net worth.
Yeah, 40 times as much net worth if you're a homeowner than if you're a renter. And that should be enough motivation for everyone just to, pull the veil back and realize the importance of being homeowners. And then, like I was kind of touching on, there's every reason, like if you look at, for example, the nature of communities where there's a lot of renters versus the nature of a community where there's a lot of owners, what would you rather live in? Just intuitively, you're going to want to live in a place where people are more invested in the schools and the safety of, and everyone looks out for each other on a higher level, all those things. So look, I don't get it. I still don't completely understand it, but you're going to have to be your own best filter for all the levels and the mountains of misinformation that's going to come out. And I'll tell you where Julie and I are thinking, and I'll be thrilled if we're right about this, because it's probably one of our biggest, bizarrest, almost conspiracy theories, but this is what I think is going to happen. I think Trump is gearing up. Julie and I have been talking about this for an enormous housing announcement. And part of it, the big part of it's going to be the release from Fannie and Freddie from conservatorship, but a whole bunch of other things that we can't even conceive. The guy likes to think big. I think everyone will agree. So we think that the anti-Trumpers politicians and all the rest of it, they're trying to prepare in anticipation of some sort of big Trump housing announcement. And that's what we think, that's what it feels like. It feels like, a lot of mustering and anticipation of some sort of big political battle. I don't know. Again, we could be wrong, but it does feel like that's what's going on. Moral of the story is every bit of factual information based on real numbers, not just economists, is absolutely pointing to the fact that there is going to be a real strong recovery from this really 3 years of, one could argue, a housing depression that we've all been experiencing. And it looks to me from the numbers, and Julie and I, you and I were talking about this prior to today's pod. You were listening to Mike Simonson's podcast. And he was talking about the fact that there's a building of inventory. And if there's a building, he said, if there's a building of inventory and there's a decreasing of interest rates, then you could have really what could only be described as a real housing boom. And guess what's happening? Building of inventory and a decreasing of interest rates. So, and if you in some markets have a decreasing of home prices because the sellers are reducing prices, and at the same time you have a decreasing of interest rates, you're going to see absolutely a huge turnaround in some of these housing markets like we haven't seen probably for, really since probably 2001. Or not 2021, 2022.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's right. And, there's certainly still enough demand, and it could spell the perfect storm in a good way with more inventory to choose from, both in new construction and in resale. Maybe some more moderate pricing. It's normal to see some price reductions. That's okay. That's not the end of the world. We talked about that yesterday. And then all we need is a bit better, read on the interest rates. They're already coming down. A lot of people are saying once they get like 6.25, we're already between 6.5 and 6.75. So we're going the right direction. And I, like you, am anxious to stay up on all of the different Trump housing stuff. I go to whitehouse.gov every day so that I'm not just reading headlines. I'm reading what was the actual, they literally put up what was the executive order or what was the request. A lot of the executive orders are requests for a deep dive into information so that they can first understand what's going on, say, in housing, and then they can make some decisions. So I think it's important to not just read headlines or what somebody said or a survey on Facebook or whatever. That's why I go to whitehouse.gov and other things like I like Altos Research. And of course, Housing Wire does a great job as well. So
well, the best place the place where we get the best information is, and this is going to be really insider information, but this is where we go. So in our EXP Realty group, we have over 3,000 agents that are part of our group, and we can see we have really good optics on what's happening in basically every state in the nation, as well as I think your and I's real estate groups in 7 different countries. So we can see what's happening. We can see what the pendings are. We can see what and from our coaching clients too, we can see what the number of listings are. And we don't see, like, if you compare this time and this year versus last year, this time, we are seeing essentially green lights everywhere as far as things that would lead to a real incredible late spring, early summer housing market. So you're going to have to make sure that you've got your head screwed on straight. We're always going to give the actual factual information. And then you have to be ready, not to debate or banter or anything like that, but you're going to have to be ready to have conversations with your buyers and sellers because their heads are going to be all full of this misinformation too. Again, we talked about that on the show yesterday. So yes, thank you for the great feedback on that topic. And thank you for helping Julie and I kind of decipher why, some people seem to be definitely anti-housing. And anyone else have any thoughts on that? Obviously, we encourage you to message us directly over on Instagram at Tim and Julie Harris. Julie?
Yes. So on to our topic du jour, and excuse both of us for our coughs, sneezes, and wheezes because we're still fighting the 5th grade plague of this year. But we're on the upswing, I hope. Excuse me.
By that, she means we have a 5th grader, and Zoe brings us home plagues on a regular basis. And if for some reason we don't have that, exact, plague, that exact virus, well, then sure enough, we get it.
Exactly. But today we're talking about no more ghosting, 10 secrets to get prospects to call you back. And yes, I am using some notes just to make sure we stay on topic here. But what made me do this topic is the question, are you looking for more appointments with buyer and seller prospects? Of course you are. But what if your leads aren't answering and they don't call you back? I hear this on coaching calls all the time. I got this lead, but I've called, I've texted, they're not calling me back. Are they ghosting you intentionally or are they just busy with life? And how do you know when you're calling too much, becoming a creepy stalker versus being a competent salesperson? So the following 10 proven secrets, and we may or may not get through all 10 because Tim told you how to get the notes. We have 10 proven secrets to help you spend more time on appointments and less time chasing leads. It takes discipline and strategy to get those leads to respond. So follow some of these tips and secrets. Some of these you're probably doing already, but maybe you want to up your game and add a few more techniques. So number one seems so like duh, okay? But I've had so many coaching clients tell me that it changed their life. Number one, answer the phone in the first place. If you want to cut down on lead follow-up and chasing people, answer your phone whenever possible to reduce those follow-up calls. If you're not with a client or a prospect or maybe at a family event, make it a priority to just pick up the phone. I had a coaching client tell me, she said, just pick up the damn phone. She said that increased her business, just that one point, over 12 months by 30%. And I asked her, well, what was your deal? Why weren't you picking up the phone? And she said, well, I didn't want them to think I didn't have any business. I'm like, well, if you
Ego.
want to ensure that you don't have any business, don't answer your phone, right?
But Julie, this is a good place to mention. So if you have your phone set up so that any phone numbers aren't that are calling into your phone aren't in your directory, they're automatically pushed to voicemail. You need to turn that off so you
Yeah.
start getting all the calls. And if you get a spam call, just mark it spam, and then yeah, the AT&T whoever will block in the future. But you want to make it so that you are receiving all of your calls. Now it's funny too. It's not only that egotistical, like I don't want people to perceive that I have nothing better to do than answer the damn phone. But it is interesting that in this day and age where everybody tries to do things digitally and passively, that the person who actually answers the phone or calls the lead back is the one that's getting the business. If you guys want to really differentiate yourself in the marketplace, one of the smartest things to do is do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. And if everyone else is trying to push everyone, all their potential clients to a passive lead follow-up system, you absolutely positively don't want to do that because you're going to be able to simply by answering the phone and having a conversation with folks, that in itself is going to make you unique and special. And here's an interesting little statistic for you. Now, I'm going to stretch the definition of the word meet, but NAR has proven many, many times over every bit of research they've ever done that like 90% plus of all consumers work with the first agent that they meet. Okay. So meet could be a phone call, right? Nowadays, arguably it is. Meet, not the first person they get an email from or a text or a video, right? So be the first person that they talk to. Now, I'll tell you the other reason that you guys don't like to call people back. You don't know what the hell to say. Okay, that's the reason you use our pre-qualification scripts that we give you. And as a script, it's a calling the lead back script, but it's a pre-qualification script. And we want you to memorize our script, internalize the script, and then make it yours by personalizing it. Don't just try to personalize it because then you'll skip the real importance of the script and the reason we've written it the way we did all those years ago and update it all the time. So make sure you're using the script. You call your leads back. And I'll tell you the third thing I see people making, even, this is a real sin that's being committed by a lot of top producing agents. Julie just mentioned that, one of her top producing coaching clients, she realized that she was committing this sin. She started calling all the leads back herself or answering the phone.
Answering the phone in the first place.
Right. Okay. So if you have a big staff or a team and you're generating a lot of leads, you cannot delegate the actual pre-qualification, especially of your seller leads, because they're never going to do a very good job. I had a top producing agent that was looking to join Julie and I's EXP Realty Group on the phone the other day, and that this person was doing pretty good. They weren't struggling, but they were like missing a lot of leads. And I asked them about what their makeup of transactions was. So for every 100 deals they close, something like 70% of them are buyer leads, and they were buying buyer leads from Zillow. So I just want to throw that out there. And then I asked them, well, read me your script. What's your experience if I am following up with you or calling you, or like if I come in contact with your business and I'm presenting as a buyer, what's the experience? And then he gave me an overview. It's this, we called them back and okay, who's the they? Well, I have three people that call them back. Okay, what's the script? Well, I think I know this. Go get the script. All right. So then he read the script to me. Nowhere in the script to call the buyer lead back was there anything about, do you have a home to sell? So nothing in the script was actually trying to just determine whether that buyer was actually a seller, as most buyers actually are sellers, especially if they're in something other than the first time home buyer price range. You guys following me here? So my strongest advice to you is you need to do all your lead follow-up yourself, because and you use our script because you're going to find a ton of buyers that you think are buyers are actually sellers. In other words, they have to sell before they can buy, and you're treating them like a buyer, but their real challenge is selling their home. And you think they're just going to say, well, I need to sell my house first. You're not taking a professional sales approach. You're just essentially giving them a public service announcement, not pulling out really what's the best opportunity with that lead, which isn't the buyer side, it's the seller side. And then once they sell the house, then they become a buyer lead for you. You guys understanding what I'm saying here?
Yeah, and the most buyers agents don't have that thought. Most team leaders are more attached to the listing because they know that that generates the lead, right? So if you delegate all of your lead follow-up and that person isn't tuned in like you are to finding those listing leads, you might not have just lost a buyer lead, you also lost a listing lead. So it's
Well,
extra painful. I think, I see
I'm
that a
going to
lot
add
too.
I'm going to add that slightly, Julie, because of all the big team conversations I've had, I think probably in the last maybe even 6 months, none of them have been primarily focused on listings. All of them have been primarily
You mean the
focused on
team
buyers.
leaders themselves?
The team leaders themselves.
Ah,
And they
yeah.
themselves didn't really know how to go about doing the listing side of the business. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of them were talking with us about, coaching, but also they're talking about moving with us over to EXP because they wanted to build their listing business. So all the competition is on the buyer side of the business, guys. There's no competition really that's on the seller side of the business. What we teach you is to do both in our premier coaching program, but what we really want you focusing on is becoming the best version of yourself as a listing agent, because that's where all the leverage is. That's where all the money is. That's where you want to be. That's where you control the conversation. That's where you control the transaction. So tune your frequency to actually focusing on sellers, and you're going to find yourself working, frankly, a lot fewer hours and making a lot more money.
You'll be happier.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. It's a better lifestyle. Okay, so point number two, again, we're talking about how to cut down on feeling ghosted and chasing leads all the time. Point number two, practice furiously fast lead follow-up. Remember, point number one was answer the phone in the first place as much as possible. And I missed a little section of that. Is part of that reason is not everybody's even going to leave you a voicemail. So you might not even have that lead to follow up on if you are making your calls. You can, maybe you're losing half of what you could get because you're just not answering the phone. So number two, if you have to, excuse me, then practice furiously fast lead follow-up. If you have to do that, do it within a few minutes tops. Furiously fast lead follow-up shows you're available, professional, and here to be of service. Answer the questions the first time that they're being asked when they have those questions, and you'll be setting appointments instead of chasing them down. And
Okay, you
stop being
said
weird. Yeah, go ahead.
But you said something, and this is
Uh-huh.
important. The whole point of calling someone back, the whole point of having a conversation isn't to create another lead follow-up, isn't to
Right.
essentially drip on them. The whole point is to pre-qualify them and then set an appointment. You need to think like that. You're not in the relationship creating business. The people that are buying and selling or want to buy and sell with you don't want to have a 6 month relationship with you. And if they do, those are not buyers or sellers. Those are not the real leads you should be focusing on. You guys are focusing on creating contacts. Julie and I want you creating leads. A lead is someone that's going to transact with you in the next 90 days or less, maybe 120 days or less, depending on your market. So definitely be thinking like that. I'm not here to create a long-term lead follow-up, put somebody in my drip campaign. I'm going to talk to Julie right now, and I'm going to follow my pre-qualification script, and I'm going to determine what her actual time frame is. I'm going to ask her all these questions, and our scripts are written in such a way that it's very conversational, so don't worry about that. They won't feel like they're being interrogated. And then you're going to say, okay, well, this person wants to transact or has to transact in the next 90 days or less. Obviously, that's one I'm going to prioritize. But what you guys are doing is you're treating everybody the same, and you're putting them in drip campaigns, and you're not pulling out of them. You're expecting your drip campaign to pull out of them their motivation, and you're expecting them to say, okay, I'm real motivated now, I'm ready to transact. That is a rookie mistake, and you're losing billions of dollars per year as an industry through that 100% goofy thing that every agent's being taught to do right now. And it goes back to fast lead follow-up. It goes back to pre-qualifying folks. If you are the agent that's calling somebody back right away or answering the phone in the first place, and you're having a professional conversation with them and you're pre-qualifying them, don't you think that experience in itself is going to cause them to see you more professionally than all the other agents that are trying to fake friend them and then drip on them forever, hoping and praying they actually become a transaction? You guys get the difference in approach? Please do understand that one of the biggest reasons that 71% of all agents sold no homes last year was because they didn't listen to what I just said, all the thousands and thousands and thousands of times that we've been saying it on our podcast over the last 14 years. Julie?
Well, it's a mindset, right? When your phone rings, are you thinking this could be my next listing? This could be my next buyer side? Or are you thinking, send them to voicemail. I already got enough buyer leads or whatever you're telling yourself, right? when you're doing your lead follow-up, and I've always thought that it should be called appointment setting, not lead follow-up. Lead follow-up sounds like you just got to get through your lead follow-up. It should be called appointment setting. I'm calling these people back to pre-qualify them using questions so that I can either set an appointment or not set an appointment. They might not even make it into my contacts list. It might not even be a related call, but I'm not going to know if I'm not either answering the first place or calling them right back.
Jules, move the mic closer to your mouth if you can. Yeah, put it underneath you.
Okay.
Julie, put it underneath you. You'll have to adjust your desk probably.
Maybe that's better.
Oh, that's way better. Yeah.
Okay.
No, put it even closer to you if you can.
We'll try
guys, listen, we moved to Zoom. We told you we were going to have technical issues. So if Julie sounded like she was a little distant because she didn't adjust her mic, all good now though.
Okay. So let's move on to number 3. Again, our topic is getting away from ghosting and closer to appointments. Number 3, use their preferred method of communication, not yours. Everyone has a preferred method of communication, even though we all have 75 different ways of talking to each other, whether that's text messaging, email, Facebook Messenger, LinkedIn, whatever it is. Ask them how they want to be communicated with. I actually did some research on this. Did you know that 40% of people still prefer voice-to-voice calls? They'll say, don't text me, I want to talk to you. At least 40% of people prefer that. 30% prefer email, 20% text message, and things like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and LinkedIn are all less than 5%, with people saying how they like to check their messages and be communicated with. So if you're somebody that's addicted to WhatsApp, I know in Puerto Rico here, we're much more oriented towards WhatsApp. There's like 9 million WhatsApp groups. But if I'm used to doing that and I'm trying to communicate with somebody who doesn't even have WhatsApp on their phone, and I keep saying, maybe to my coach, I keep texting them, but they never get back with me. Maybe because you're texting them in a way that they don't ever communicate. Does that make sense?
It is. No, it does. It does. And Julie, you get a little bit closer if you can, or just move it right underneath, right in front of you. That would be even better. Don't worry.
Yeah. Or even like, I know that I've had to train myself to check Facebook Messenger because every now and then I have a coaching client that just says something. It's usually just something nice, a comment or something, but I don't like them to feel like I didn't see that. It's because that's not the first thing that I check. So point number 3 is just, when you're talking to your prospects, ask them, how do they like to be communicated with? And make a note of that on the file, or maybe in your contacts, it says WhatsApp only, if that's their thing, right? So communicate how they want to be communicated with. And that goes for if you're posting a lot of content on YouTube, for example, check those comments as well, and Instagram. Back to you.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, it is true too, because you have, WhatsApp, you have Instagram, direct messaging on, people are now, on X and all these different things. And you can get devices that'll, apps that'll pull in all this communication into one place. And maybe that's what all of us should be doing. But a lot of your consumers are only going to have one preferred source of communication, but the one that trumps all is going to be the phone call. Sorry. And that's especially true. This is Julie and I doing what we don't want to do when we don't want to do at the highest level, because we both still have the flu, but we're doing our podcast. Exactly. But Julie, so if you think about this from a demographic perspective, the people that are most likely to be sellers are going to be people that the least likely to want to necessarily be reliant solely on technology. They're the ones that are going to want to put the most value on an actual phone call. And yes, I'm talking about older people, because most of the sellers right now are people that are, the average, I'm guessing probably 45 and older would be a vast majority of your sellers. But the biggest amount of selling is going to be happening in the very near future from baby boomers. And they're going to be what now, 50, well, maybe even 61 and older. They're definitely going to prefer a phone call. And all your competitors are all trying to force these folks that want a phone call into using WhatsApp, and the person doesn't even have WhatsApp on their phone.
They don't even know what it is.
Right. But you guys get how that's just something that's going to work against the competitor that's not versatile enough to simply ask the consumer, how do you want to be communicated with? Seems simple.
Yes. Okay. So this is kind of on and off topic at the same time. This might surprise you. I listened to a podcast. This is going to sound ultra nerd bag, so apologies, but I listened to a podcast called Away with Words. And they had a very interesting conversation regarding our topic today. I just listened to it before our podcast. It was a millennial who they have, like, every now and then they have a call in and they have a question about words and communication and texting and different things like this. And they actually had a millennial. She was 27. And her question was about reading texts that have ellipses, ... And she said that she feels like her generation takes the ... as aggression, that somebody's mad at them. because they're not telling them the rest of the story. And she thinks that people that are older than her, or she was being very delicate. She's like, other generations, maybe they carried that over from how they used to write and how people would communicate more in actual text, like text before it was text, like, words. And that she suspected that what they really meant was, well, there's more to the story, but I'm not going to tell you right now. But her perception, and she had talked to her friends about it, that their generational perception was that it was actually a passive aggressive move on the person that they were getting the text from when they used dot, dot, dot. I thought that was really interesting
That
because
is
it's kind of you would think it's the opposite. So that's another reason not to text, right? I mean, not to text as your primary thing. I know that some of my coaching clients that work specifically the 55 and over communities, they're exclusively voice to voice or come over for coffee. Let's sit down and chat. It's just like more pure for them, I guess. Anyway,
you
that's
realize
my
you, but
visit
so
to nerddom.
do you realize what you just said? Did you hear
What?
the last bit of what you just said?
The
I
over
want to,
55 thing?
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I hate that. I know. When did that become a thing? Anyway, it only applies to
Uh,
one of us, but
oh, someone just
anyway.
called me out for being 55. Hey, so what goes on these 55 and older communities? Maybe we need to check them out. You're too young, of course.
I hear they have good pools and stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So that was my digression into a way with words. You might enjoy it, some of my word nerd friends. Okay. So, point number 4, to get away from ghosting, switch up your contact attempt times. Okay. Maybe it has been hard to get somebody voice to voice, but avoid the habit of reaching out at exactly the same time every day. Change the time and the day that you try to contact somebody. According to research by HubSpot, the best days to call are Wednesday and Thursday. The best times to call are between 4 and 6 p.m., followed by 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Best times to text are between 3 and 4 p.m. to get the highest response rates. So
That's
I think that's
interesting.
interesting. Yeah. And you can mix
I
it up, right? So, I have coaching clients that are, they're trying to be really good on their schedule. And I appreciate that. That's great. They're trying to have good time management. And they'll say, well, I do my lead follow up every day after lunch between 12 and 1, but I'm always leaving messages. I never get anybody. Well, maybe that's because they're at work. So mix it up. Do a weekday evening, do a Saturday morning. Try it between 3 and 4 p.m. or 4 and 6 p.m., especially to family communities because the kids are getting home from school. They're meeting the school bus. Somebody's going to be home. So don't be so overly rigid that you only, excuse me, you only do your lead follow up between this time and this time. And if I get them, I get them. And if I don't, I don't. I think that's a mistake.
Of course,
Back to you.
all this complexity and this Rubik's cube of trying to figure out when to call people back is irrelevant if you answered the phone in the first place, and if you called them back right away if you missed their call. So keeping all of
Yeah.
that in mind, Julie.
Yes. That's why those are points number 1 and 2.
Yes.
Okay. So number 5, offer something of value. Prospects expect to receive something of value. Always have something valuable to offer, like a free market analysis, hot new listings that meet their criteria, information on a low interest mortgage, or a new construction model home that you'd like to tour with them. The more customized to the prospect, the more effective it's going to be. So give them what they want. Make them be dying to call you back. And I listened to a podcast about how invaluable leaving messages like, I'm just checking in, just touching base. That doesn't mean anything. I'm going to probably hang up on that, or I'll be like, oh, if it was important, they'll find me eventually. So if you have buyer leads and you have had conversations and you know what they're pre-qualified for, they're all cash and they're just not in contract because you haven't found them something, don't just leave a message, hey, I'm just touching base. Tell them that you've got 3 homes picked out to see this afternoon that meet their criteria, and 2 of them are actually less than their price range that they were thinking. Make them be dying to call you back.
All right, so Julie, let's give them a bonus point, okay? Bonus
Sure.
point alert. Boop, boop. All right, here it is. So we do get this question quite frequently, and this probably is Julie's last point. So when do you stop calling back? How do I know if I'm being too aggressive with lead follow-up, right? So what are the Tim and Julie rules with lead follow-up? That type of question, right? We've gotten that in so many different versions. I know it's one of your points, dear.
It's
I'm
point
just
number
gonna,
10. But
okay. All right. Well, okay. We could hold out. You
we
want to
can
hold out?
we could make a cliffhanger out of it.
All right, we're going to make a cliffhanger. You guys are going to love point number 10, so stay listening. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay, sorry. Let's see. Offer something of value. Make them be dying to call you back. Number 6, let them know when you'll follow up. When you call or email, let them know exactly when to expect the follow up and then stick to it. That shows you're a planner, you're reliable, you're transparent. And if somebody is intent on ignoring you, they're unlikely to become your buyer anyway. So that's just setting expectations. That's an easy one. Number 7 is make a personal connection. They prefer working with people who make them comfortable. Okay. Personalized communication often performs better. So you can make it more personal. This is where you can use social media, right? And one of the things that I have coaching clients do when they thought they had a really great buyer or seller lead, but they've lost the scent, like they're just not getting called back, and they're starting to feel, oh, they must be ghosting me. I must have said something wrong. Go to their social media. Maybe they're just on a cruise someplace and they're not talking to anybody and it has nothing to do with you. So you could leave a message. Hey, I noticed that you're having a great time out in the Caribbean on your cruise. Hey, when you get back into dock, give me a call because I've got some great stuff to talk about with you. So make it personal. You can loop in different events, maybe your friends from school or whatever makes sense for you to make it personal.
Well,
And then, yeah,
Julie's
go ahead.
point about, kind of stalking them on social, that that's not we're not suggesting you go and just direct message them till the cows come
Don't
home.
be creepy.
Don't be creepy, but you can see what's going on in their lives. And she also said something there. She said it really quick. I want to make sure you guys picked up on this. Sometimes people are ghosting you or not following up with you. Um, at what you would perceive to be a normal level of follow up because they have something going on in their lives called life, because their kids got the flu, because something else is going on. And it's not about you. So if you start thinking, well, this person's not following up with me as like I would deem to be appropriate for what I've been sharing with them, I must have offended them. If you all of a sudden start finding yourself being inwardly directed and start thinking about your ego and whatnot, what's going to happen? Or you start feeling rejected, basically. What's going to happen as soon as you allow yourself to slip into that psychological rut, you're going to avoid calling them because you're going to start thinking that they're going to summarily reject you if you actually talk with them. And that's the reason that a lot of people will just drop them into a drip campaign. It's a huge mistake. So remember, if someone has changed their behavior towards you, chances are it's not something you've done. It's something that's going on in their lives. And so you just need to, be a little bit respectful. Now, if you did do something that you think maybe you shouldn't have said, you need to own it. You need to own it right away. And so you need to say, listen, Bob, I apologize if I've done or said anything to offend you. And if I did, I want you to understand it was definitely not my intention. So as soon as if you do intuitively get a pang that you've done something to offend somebody, even if you don't know what the hell it is, but they're acting towards you as if you did, you need to immediately own that and apologize. Because as soon as you do, they're going to, 99% of the time, they're just going to let it go. Or you're going to discover, oh, Bob, it wasn't, Julie, it wasn't you it was me. I had a problem with my, whatever it was. And I'm sorry, I should have done a better job. But don't allow your brain to start manifesting things that don't actually exist, especially when it comes to lead follow up. It just, it's an easy mistake to make. Like imagine going to the gym every day and you have somebody that says hello to you and is friendly every day. And all of a sudden they stop saying hello to you and they're not as friendly as they used to be. You're just going to assume, well, they no longer like you. And you're going to then reciprocate and you're going to start sort of ignoring them as well. And now you've made this sort of bizarre chemistry amongst this person that was kind of your gym friend before. I mean, why? Why have you done that? Why have you, maybe they're going through a hard time and they just weren't feeling as, demonstrative and they weren't just feeling as friendly as they'd normally had. Whatever, right? Life happens. So again, don't make it all about you. Just remember, you're here to be of service to other people. And that means a lot of times you're going to have to be sympathetic and a little bit more empathetic in some of their lifetime situations. And again, focus on, well, this person is having a little change in behavior. Maybe I need to pull back a little bit. Maybe I need to check them out on social, see what's going on. And then if you do find something's going on in their life that is causing a change in their behavior, depending on how much you've pre-qualified them and gotten to know them, it's okay if you actually say something. So I noticed that your dog just died, and I'm very sorry about that. And don't just start talking about when your dog died. Just
Right.
basically give them a shoulder to cry on and tell them that you understand and that you're very sad to hear that. And then that's it. And you do that, you're gold.
Yeah, very, very well said. And adjust accordingly based on what you find out. But I like your point about don't make it all about you. You
Yep.
know, I think in real estate, whether that's lead follow up or especially in negotiating, we hear this, is that agents like to make stuff up in their head like, oh, this must be happening. There's a conspiracy theory against me. And I always say, like, unless you have evidence that that's the case, let's just suspend that and see what's really going on.
Well, I have people right now in my life who changed their behavior towards me for and I've even though I didn't know why they changed their behavior or wasn't clear on it, I have done exactly what I suggested to you guys. And by the way, we learned that from a guy named Ray Robinson, who was a pastor, and
Mhm.
he also just do a lot of real estate deals with us. And anyway, long story short, he's the one that gave me that script, and it's a great script. So I have said that recently to somebody who I don't know why their behavior has changed towards me, but it has. And like the old Tim from like 20 years ago would have thought, well, this person's working against me. I try to villainize them. I would try to build
Mhm.
all this stuff up in my head. But now I just realized, well, they're just too busy, whatever. And now that I've apologized and I've essentially taken the high road, whether or not they choose to accept it or whether they choose to act on it in a way that would put us back on track with our friendship, that's their decision. It's not mine, and I'm okay with them not. That's the
Mhm.
only way to get through life.
Yeah, but you have taken the high road and sent it out into the wild, and we'll see. I think
But
that's the professional way to do it.
Well, I bet I did that for myself too, because I
Hmm.
didn't want anything manifesting in myself about why that person is all of a sudden acting this different way towards me.
Yeah.
So I just basically put it out there and I let it go. And that made it so that it's no longer living inside of my brain and I can just move on, and maybe they circle back and we become friends again, or maybe, who knows, again, I don't know what's going on in their life
Mhm.
that would change their behavior. And if I did offend them, I apologize. And I don't think I did, but such is life.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to fast forward to our cliffhanger point because they can get the notes on some of the other ones. Number 10, know the average number of contacts it takes. Don't give up so fast. And you're right, that is a very common question that we get. How much is too much? I don't want to feel like a stalker type of thing. It often takes multiple contacts to get a response from a prospect. Sometimes it takes multiple contacts using different types of contact, a voicemail, a lunch, a card in the mail, a door knocking, a flyer, a text, something on Facebook. So you can mix it up, okay? But it often takes multiple contacts. According to research by InsideSales.com, it takes an average of 8 attempts to reach a prospect. 8. Understanding that can help set realistic expectations and encourage persistence. So be prepared to follow up consistently while varying your approach to increase the likelihood of making a connection. I think
Let,
most agents will give up after 3 or 4 attempts.
but understand all of Julie's points are secondary to the first two things that she said. If you answer the phone when they call, or if you miss it and you have called them back furiously fast, all these other points they're interesting but not really necessary, because you would have gotten them on the phone and you would have pre-qualified them and you would have moved them from contact to lead. You guys get it? That's the reason it's so critical that you do such a phenomenal job calling people back. And if you, for whatever reason, can't, you call them, you answer the phone, and if not, you call them back with furiously fast lead follow up. But Julie, that actually isn't what the point is that I wanted to make.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't be apologizing. So, someone like a typical question we get from a coaching client is, I've got a listing lead that I pre-qualified. They have to sell their home. They have to have their house for sale in the next 90 days. They're not calling me back. I don't want to feel like a stalker. How frequently do I call them back? How much do I follow up with them? And here's the joke rule, but this is definitely the rule I want you guys to internalize. You follow up with them, especially if they're a seller, until one of two things happens. They list with you or somebody else, or they file a restraining order against you, right? That's it. If you have a viable seller, someone that has to sell their home, and they are definitely going to list their house, and it's a great listing and even if it's just a marginal listing, but they have to sell their home, it doesn't matter. The listing will get sold. You have to be the listing agent, is your mindset. So you don't just put them into a drip campaign and mail them postcards and you message them on social. Call them, go visit with them. If it is an absolute must sell seller, your lead follow up rule, and the only rule that matters, is you will follow up with them. And there's no such thing as following up with them too much. There's no such thing as feeling like you're stalking them. Many of you don't, you're so far away from ever over lead following up, it's not even funny, right?
Mhm.
So when you start making yourself uncomfortable with how much lead follow up you're doing, you're just barely touching the edge of the appropriate amount of lead follow up, especially with the motivated seller. So your rule is this: number one, if they have to sell, you follow up with them until they list with you or somebody else, or they file a restraining order against you. And I'm only half joking about the restraining order. You understanding the importance of what I'm trying to say. Change your mindset from passive to proactive, and everything in your life is going to change commensurately. Now, I want to remind you, all of you, you need to be joining Premier Coaching. What the heck are you waiting for? You can join Premier Coaching right now for free. You get full access to the first level of Premier Coaching. You do get, depending on how you choose to join, you can have instant access to an ethical real estate professional. Everything is there waiting for you. We talk about the coaching program on every podcast and every Zoom, on every YouTube, on everything we do. Thousands of you join per year. It's a proven system. It is a complete system. It's proven to work in all price ranges and all marketplaces. It's always being evolved. If you're selling luxury homes, if you're selling ranches, if you're selling first-time buyer homes, condos, it does not matter. We got you covered in Premier Coaching. It is a complete system. All your pre-listing packages and your presentations and your scripts, your objection handlers, all your lead follow-up rules, all your lead generation ideas, everything you could possibly need is waiting for you in Premier Coaching. And you can join for free. No risk to you. No long-term contracts. No gotchas. Just go to premiercoaching.com or click the link below to join Premier Coaching. Julie, you want to wrap us up for today?
Well, I want to remind them to take a look at your leads. If you're one of our Premier Coaching clients, you're going to look at your whiteboard. You're going to look at some of the tracking that we've worked on with you. And you're going to say, okay, so this person I've reached out to this many times, and where am I going wrong? Oh, it's because I always call them at 10 a.m. Maybe they're never around at 10 a.m. I'm going to pop by because I know that their house isn't vacant. I'm going to mix it up. And I'm going to not just pop by, but I'm also going to have a handwritten card in case I miss them. And then I'm going to circle back and call them this evening. Is that more or less aggressive than what you're doing? Are you following Tim's rule? And again, half joking, we make that rule follow up until they list or sell with you or tell you they're going to do it with somebody else, or a restraining order, so you'll remember to do it that aggressively. Most agents give up too quickly and then sometimes get mad because somebody else took that listing. Don't let that happen to you.
You stop following up because you're assuming that they're not following up with you because they don't like you or don't want to list with you. You're forgetting the previous point that they've got a life and they're doing other things and you're not the most important thing to them,
You're not
right?
priority.
You're not priority. And your ego is telling you, well, they must not want to list with me. I'm going to stick them in my drip campaign. That way I don't have to feel rejected. So by avoiding rejection, by doing things passively, which is the reason you do it passively, it's not so that you're, more polite to the customer. It's not so that you're trying to, none of those things. You're just avoiding rejection. That's it. There's no two ways about it. But you actually manifest rejection by trying to avoid rejection. Let me explain. So if your rationalization for not being an aggressive lead follow-upper and using our pre-qualification script is you're going to seem too pushy and they're not going to want to do business with you. So you're going to put them in a drip campaign. You're going to be too passive and you're going to essentially, not ever have them follow up with you. What do you manifest? What do you create? Rejection, not in the I'm not hiring you way, but in the you don't get the listing or get the buyer side way because they end up doing business with somebody else who is more aggressive. So by trying to avoid rejection, you manifest rejection. But the very thing that you're trying to avoid the most, the thing that you're the sense of, oh my gosh, what happens if they say no to me? You actually, because you focus on that more than what if they say yes to me? What if I follow this pre-qualification script that I get from Premier Coaching? What if I ask all the questions? What if I determine what their motivation is to set the appointment? That's where your brain needs to be. Not, oh my gosh, how is it going to feel if they reject me? You guys get it? It's a difference in approach, but there's one of the many reasons why only, all the real estate transactions are being done by so few agents because they get what we're saying. They intuitively know it, or they've learned it the hard way, or maybe they become our coaching clients and they've learned it from our coaching program. Keep all these things in mind that we are on the absolute foothills of what's going to be a long-term expansive housing recovery. Be part of the celebration of the housing recovery. Make sure you're not lining your mind with all the doom and gloom headlines. And if you're finding yourself seeking that out on the internets, I strongly encourage you to stop doing it because, again, same as the point we just made, if you're looking for reasons to feel doubtful and skeptical, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel like doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level? Does it make you feel like doing furiously fast lead follow-up? Does it make you feel like fully pre-qualifying somebody? Does it make you feel like doing anything? No, because if you believe tomorrow is worse than today, you are not going to do the things you otherwise would have had you believe that tomorrow is going to be better than today. And so by not taking the actions necessary to make tomorrow better than today, you make tomorrow worse than today. You guys see that circular thinking? But that is how it works and everything in life.
That's the real estate hamster wheel if you allow yourself to be on it. So
That's
get off
right.
the hamster wheel and set those appointments. We know you guys can do it. And I couldn't think of a better way to wrap.
That's perfect. So, guys, listen to our podcast anytime. Thanks for keeping this the most downloaded daily and viewed now podcast for real estate professionals in at least the United States. It's our pleasure and our honor to continue to provide this information for you. Your homework from this podcast, as well as every podcast that we do, is to definitely join Premier Coaching. Link is down below, or you can just go to premiercoaching.com. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you on the show tomorrow.